This talk was given by Roshi Rafe Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is Saturday, January 3rd. Wow. 2026. This is our first Tay show in 2026. Question came up this morning for me, which, given some of the events of this morning, is on all of our plates, really, is how in this world, and it's a fundamental question, it will lead us to what I want to do this morning, which is read from the new book, start again. Last time I tried that, I was still dealing with the pericarditis and such, and could hardly get through it without coughing every sentence, so we're going to start again. In any case, the question for all of us, it's the question for the young Prince Siddhartha, 25, 26, 28, whatever it was, 100 years ago. How can you be happy in this world, knowing what you know? People do terrible things to one another, or so many things seem to have gone awry and amiss on our Saha world, Saha meaning bearable, tolerable, a planet one among many. How can we be happy here? And that's the whole essence of the Buddha way. Of course, there are many kinds of happiness, and we'll get into that. But how can one be fundamentally, truly at peace and happy, knowing, as we do all know, things that are just plain wrong and cause so much pain and so much suffering unnecessarily? So that was the question behind this whole book, Finding Your Buddha Smile, Coming Home to What Zen is Really All About. So I'm just going to start again at the beginning of this, and we'll go through the beginning and the introduction perhaps today. I have very little memory of what is in the book, except for the opening and the introduction. So I'm curious what we'll discover as we go along. So let's see how it goes. It starts with a series of quotes. I had ambitions to set out and find an odyssey of going home somewhere. I set out to find this home that I'd left a while back and couldn't remember exactly where it was, but I was on my way there. I was born very far from where I'm supposed to be, and I'm on my way home, you know? That's Bob Dylan, the opening of No Direction Home, Martin Scorsese's film. Yeah. So I'm on my way home, you know? Then we'll turn to Herman Melville and Moby Dick, one of my personal favorite books. It's not down in any map. True places never are. It's not down in any map. True places never are. And now from The Snow Leopard, Peter Matheson's book. If you've never read it, I hope you will. Take a little time to do so. As his own death drew near, Shakyamuni turned again to the north. Come, Ananda, let us go to Kushanagara. Like the rest of us, perhaps he longed for home. That's from The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson. And then finally, we'll turn to Wu Men and the Gateless Barrier, K6. Once in ancient times, when the world-honored one was in Mount Rakuta, he held up a flower before his assembled disciples. At this, all were silent. Only Mahakashapa broke into a smile. So, begin with thanks. I think it's always good to begin with thanks. Don't you think so? Thanks. Any book that actually gets written is the result of an uncanny assortment of causes and conditions tracing endlessly back and further back. Where should thanks begin? Parents, grandparents, siblings, pets, friends, partners, children, triumphs, scrapes, and mishaps, trees and grasses should all be included, not to mention teachers. Yet this particular book owes specific debts for its beginning and for its completion to my own Sangha at Endless Path Zendo, Rochester, New York, local and distant members. First generation pioneering Western Zen teacher Roshi Philip Kapleau, the Three Pillars of Zen, who in addition to being my root teacher for over 20 years also became family, close friend, and life guide. Robert Aitken Roshi, founder of the Diamond Sangha, for his generosity and kindness in willingly taking on this half-baked Zen student aiming to uncover greater naturalness and intimacy in practice. Dane Henry Roshi, founder of the Zen Center of Denver, both a Kapleau heir and a Diamond Sangha master, for his transformative guidance in ongoing practice realization, especially in Diamond Sangha style Zen. Sunyana Graf Roshi, abbot and founding teacher of the Vermont Zen Center and a Kapleau Roshi disciple and heir, and her sanghas in Vermont and Costa Rica for her and their profound support, as well as Taigen Henderson Roshi, abbot of the Toronto Zen Center, and his Canadian Sangha for deeply treasured Dharma friendship. Many, many bows. Greg Shelton, who kindly agreed to proofread an early draft, uncovered various textual knots, which led me to reread the entire manuscript and cut, tighten, trim, and in some cases, completely rewrite more of the text than I ever imagined I'd have the will to face again. Many thanks. Big thanks too to Sunyana Graf Roshi and Taigen Henderson Roshi for pointing out that an early draft's focus on pilgrimage was missing the essential point of journey, which was the heart of the book. Hogan Bays Roshi, co-abbot of Great Vow Zen Monastery, helped me with further clarifications of a late draft, pointing the way to personalizing what might have remained distant and abstract, encouraging me to let the cat out of the bag and say from the start that this was a book featuring koans as a path of Zen Bodhisattva practice. Then thanks to John DeGrew, his Dharma name Karma Yonten Gyatso, founder of Sumeru Press, for support in Dharma publishing friendship in this challenging time for one and all here on good old planet Earth. And finally, my greatest debt, as always, is to my wife Rose, life companion and Dharma companion, whose clear suggestions throughout all drafts, and there were many, turned an early draft and the later ones too into something that might stand on its own and live as a readable book. Her sharp eye uncovered a variety of issues needing attention, and her insightful advice on the manuscript was always to the point. Finally, her patience while I remained working in my office, repeating, "I'll be there in a minute," will, now that the book is done, finally begin to find the repayment it's due. So, introduction. This book is essentially a series of koan commentaries on the theme of Zen as a path to greater happiness. In fact, it could actually be titled Finding Your Buddha Smile, Koans as a Path of Coming Home to What Zen is Really All About, which is rather saying a mouthful. As the title was already long enough, I resisted. But as the book is literally 9/10 koan commentary, it would have been accurate. Of course, there are lots of ways to be happy, many kinds of happiness. Some selfish, some naive, some fleeting, some more lasting. The kind I have in mind is of the more lasting sort, the kind that can only come after troubles, after experiencing and suffering the fundamental difficulties of an ordinary human life. Namely, after we get bit in the butt by the realization that we are only here temporarily, and that in our all too brief lifetime, painful things, sometimes pointlessly unjust things, are going to happen. How can we be happy when climate change, misogyny, racism, and violence shake us on planet Earth? How can we be happy knowing as we do that children starve, animals are mistreated, life-giving old-growth trees are on fire, rivers and oceans poisoned, tons of bombs continue to fall? It's a fundamental question, a real one, a dilemma. How happy can we be given what we know? Sigh. Is happiness a limited sort at that, only possible if we shut ourselves down, closing eyes, ears, and hearts? Cultural and political movements have been built upon such options, a fundamentally selfish, fear-driven effort to be happy by ignoring our own deeper insights of connection and compassion, striving to fulfill self-centered aspirations and desires, a kind of quite literal ignorance, which is not so outlandish or abnormal. In a long distant past life, the Buddha himself tried to do this too, and found, by walking that path to its necessarily painful and disappointing conclusion, that it didn't work. It couldn't lead to genuine happiness. The little-known traditional story about this is explored in the first chapter of this book. What then does lead to real happiness? According to legend, the historic Buddha 2,500 years ago ran into this fundamental problem at the age of 29. As a member of the entitled 1% of his time, he had everything he needed to be happy. But then he was socked in the jaw by the reality of aging, sickness, and death. If you want to see how the life of the Buddha informs ongoing Zen practice, you might take a look at my book, The Zen Life of Buddha. After that, his wealth and palaces seemed no more solid to him than so many scraps of paper being blown toward a blazing fire. Knowing then that aging, sickness, and death come to all, was there a way to be at peace and happy? Seeing a wandering hermit monk gave him the faith that there was, or might be, he set out with the determination to find that way or die in the attempt. The answer, he discovered, lay in awakening from a limiting, habitual, unconscious self-centeredness to his and our deathless, unborn, undying, original nature. That great enlightenment, of which there are endless degrees and which koans help us start opening, was transformative. The traumatized ex-prince Siddhartha Gautama, through deepest realization, found the essence of happiness, and his face blossomed into a smile. After that, he set out on the dusty roads of Nepal/India to teach others the same path of awakening. He was known then as the Buddha, the Awakened One. As the word Buddha has the same root as the verb to bud, he was a budded being, suggesting that even that profound experience was not yet the end, not yet the complete blossoming. And indeed, astonishingly, Buddhist tradition says that the path is so endless that even Shakyamuni himself is, even now, only halfway there. My aim in writing this book was simple and fundamental: to show what Zen, especially koan-based Zen, is actually about. Recently, someone told me that while they'd known about Zen for a number of years, they had stayed away from practicing it because they heard it was hard. They had a point. Being truly happy in our time, in our world, is no easy task. But so, paradoxically, being or becoming happy can be hard work. But so can finding meaningful work, or establishing a good marriage, or raising children, or writing a book. It all depends on what we want, or what we find we need. Then it is only hard when looked at from the outside. If it is what we need to do, it is simply what it is. Then adventure or journey comes closer than task. Now, to give you some sense of what you're in for in reading this book, here's a bit of lowdown. The book opens with a traditional Buddhist Jataka tale, a past life tale of the Buddha, and a commentary on it, which is then followed by 9 koans, the traditional Zen encounter story dialogues and commentaries on them, showing the Buddhist path of awakening as it unfolds and is expressed in life. Taken together, these 10 chapters present a vision of Zen Buddhism, which I formally practiced now for over 50 years, have been teaching for well over a dozen, as a practical way of helping us move from a condition of isolation and ignorance of our own nature and the nature of all things to something more satisfying, intimate, and home-like, and happy. Koans, as we shall see, are not clever or tricky intellectual puzzles. They are not tools designed to smash logic or break attachments. Rather, they are rich expressions of the essence of the non-dual Buddha way or Bodhisattva way of wisdom and compassion. They open a path of coming home to the realization, as Zen Master Hakuin put it, and I do put in his dates here because it's quite interesting. His dates are January 19th, 1686 to January 18th, 1769. As he puts it in his song in praise of Zazen, the Zazen Wasan, the place where we stand is the pure lotus land. And this very body, the body of Buddha. The issue the Buddha faced when as a young man he left his entitled palace to find an answer to his deeply troubling, make that terrifying, encounter with the injustice of aging, sickness, and death is the same one we face today. How can I be at home, at peace, and happy in an impermanent world of challenge and change? The core experience of our journey as maturing human beings, Zen calls enlightenment, realization, or intimacy. Kensho, the Japanese term for this, signifies seeing self-nature. It signifies a glimpse, a beginning. But where does it lead? Here's an anecdote that might give you some sense of that. My old Zen friend and teacher, Dean Henry Roshi, was once visiting our teacher, Roshi Philip Kaplow, who was on sabbatical at that time in Mexico. They were walking along a dirt lane outside the town of Tepoztlan, Morelos province, when a rooster came strutting along on its own. Roshi Kaplow stopped and, leaning on his walking stick, just looked and looked and looked at that rooster. Finally, they turned to Danon, and with a radiant smile blossoming across his face, exclaimed, "Michael," that was Danon's name before his ordination as a Zen priest, "have you ever seen anything so wonderful?" Michael, have you ever seen anything so wonderful? There is a point here. Earlier in life, Philip Kaplow had been the chief court reporter for both the Nuremberg and Tokyo war crimes tribunals, hearing and recording that litany of horrors, the testimony of what human beings who lacked any sense of intimacy with their own humanity could and did do, changed him. like Prince Siddhartha, who left his palace shaken to the core by a sudden encounter with aging, sickness, and death, that dramatic and horrific courtroom experience crushed the life Philip Kapleau had lived up till then. And it led him, not long after, to sell his court reporting business and return to Japan, this time to train in Zen. So that stunningly radiant smile was no trivial thing. It was a vivid expression of what his years of Zen practice, koan Zen practice, had opened to him. A little proviso here. This is not to say that koan practice is what everyone should be doing. I enjoyed koan practice. I did it because I could do it. But it's not for everyone. So while this book is certainly in praise of koan practice, and hopefully also takes away some of the preconceptions of the breaking apart logic, etc., thoughts about koans, which I find really stultifying in many ways, and inadequate and wrong, basically, though it might be a side effect for those who look at it that way, possibly. There are many kinds and ways to practice Zen, from basic inquiry, like who is hearing, to thoughtless focus of the mind, thinking beyond thinking, as Dogen described shikantaza, to counting or experiencing the breath. These are all valid and important ways of practicing Zen. So again, please reinterpret whatever is being said here about koans in relation to your own form of practice. So it was a vivid expression of what his years of Zen practice had opened to him. How do we, living in our own deeply troubled times, find that same joy, that same totally natural, unforced, archaic smile? My hope is that this book may offer a glimpse, another, this time personal anecdote to accompany that hope. I once asked another of my teachers, Robert Aikenroshi, founder of the Diamond Sangha, why, given the challenges of Zen practice, we kept at it. He answered, saying that if the condition of our world and our own impermanence has bitten us deeply, so that we have no real peace, then Zen can show us the way to happiness. You'll find a full account of this conversation in chapter 6 of this book, The Oak Tree in the Front Garden. In short, Zen mapped a way to the Buddha's smile. By the way, both these noted, pioneering, first-generation Western Zen teachers emphasized koan Zen. Indeed, both were born on the same stem, that of the Harada Yasutani koan lineage, which has since become such a central teaching path in the West. I feel very fortunate indeed to have been able to train with both these same yet different inspiring teachers, endlessly so. My own teaching reflects them both and is a hybrid, hopefully offering the best of both Kapleau and Aiken, that is Diamond Sangha, Zen. The most current research on happiness says that the more connected we feel with others, the happier we are. Through Zen practice, when our isolating, unconscious habit of self-centeredness subsides, the world in its glorious variety steps in, and we find actual connection, not thoughts or ideas about connection, but actual connection with animals, rivers, forests, seas and mountains, with stars, worms, and cell phone towers, with all that is living and non-living. As an old song so wisely says, we find that happiness lies right under our eyes, back in our own backyard. A poem by William Blake 1757 to 1827 are his dates, who to my mind is our wise old man of the West, titled, what else? The Smile, that's the name of the poem, goes like this. There is a smile of love, and there is a smile of deceit, and there is a smile of smiles in which these two smiles meet, and there is a frown of hate, and there is a frown of disdain, and there is a frown of frowns which you strive to forget in vain. For it sticks in the heart's deep core, and it sticks in the deep backbone, and no smile that ever was smiled, but only one smile alone that betwixt the cradle and grave is only once smiled can be, but when it once is smiled, there's an end to all misery. Finally, to bring this now somewhat wordy introduction to its close, the Senryu, which is a Japanese haiku-like humorous verse. And the verse goes like this. Ah, how edifying! The Holy Sutra that is coming to an end. And that's from the haiku poet Tofu, R.H. Blythe translation. Ah, how edifying! The Holy Sutra that is coming to an end. Or as Blake so succinctly put it, enough or too much. That's from his Proverbs of Hell, the marriage of heaven and hell. We'll stop here. We don't have to drag it on. It's a snowy day. Everybody should get home safely if they're in person. It's been great to see you at the beginning of this year. I think we're in for a wild ride. It's going to be a hard year. Another hard year because someone is becoming even more desperate to evade the consequences of their own thoughts and deeds. And we will all have to bear with it. But practicing, as much as the world affects us, we have no idea how our practice affects the world. So let's keep at it. Stay steady. There is a way to open a doorway, a gateless gate, to a happiness that has nothing to do with the ups and downs we're all going to face. So please take care. Let's practice together. Do the best of what we can do given the circumstances of our ordinary lives.